Awesome. So I'm Jackie from Project Piaba. We're doing something a little bit different today for Wild Fish Friday because we're at SuperZoo, and I do have a wild fish video ready for you, but it's not all the way there. I still have to edit it and put the fish names in. So we're just going to show you the fish that we have in our exhibit at SuperZoo because these are wild-caught Rio Negro species that you would see in some of the habitats that we're hoping to represent. So this is a nice paludarium built by Custom Aquariums and decorated by many numerous sponsors. We have another video all about that, and we sure appreciate everyone's sponsorship because the wild fishery actually drives a lot of conservation by providing sustainable livelihoods to rural families in the rural Amazon. So here we have some silver angelfish, Pterophyllum scholari. We have some bleeding heart tetras, Hyphosobricon erythrostigma. There's another species that also lives in the Rio Negro that's called the flameback bleeding heart tetra, which is very similar to this with a taller dorsal fin, very beautiful fish. We don't have those in this tank. We also have some Munchausia here. These are an interesting fish. They were sent to us as something else, but here's a good example of how fish can be very difficult to identify particularly when they're in transport or shipping, or they have like stress colors. So my best guess is that these are either Munchausia colletti or Munchausia copae. Either way, we'll call them a Munchausia species.
Flavio Lima has confirmed these are Munchausia collettis.
Oh, awesome. There may even be more than one species mixed in here because some of them do look a little bit different to me. So here we have, that one is maybe a red-based tetra, the one with the little spot, the little freckle, the humeral blotch. They normally have a brighter red tail, hence the name red-based tetra, Hemigrammus stictus. But he's not really displaying very well with the bright colors. These ones here with the check on the tail, those are something else. Those are most likely Hemigrammus, maybe Schmardi, but they're an interesting species. There are so many species in the genus Hemigrammus. They can be really hard to differentiate from each other, and particularly when the fish come from an export facility, fish from other river systems could have been mixed in with the orders. So they're interesting fish nonetheless, and there are so many species to discover in the Rio Negro. Let's pan over here because there are some other interesting things. Here we go. What'd you find, Fernando? Rummy-nosed tetras. So there's actually 3 species of fish that are called rummy-nosed tetras, right? There's Peditella, there's Hemigrammus blairi, and I'm blanking on the other one, but there's a third species that's also commonly referred to as rummy-nosed tetra. Rhodostomus is what they're called in Portuguese. But yes, Hemigrammus rhodostomus. Also the Latin name. Fun fact. So they're another very important species to the economy of the Rio Negro region because people fish for them, and that's a good source of income that requires a clean, healthy ecosystem. Now let's also point out the sand in this tank. This is donated by CaribSea. It's a fine, soft substrate that is found throughout the Rio Negro region. So this sand is made by CaribSea, but it's one of the closest representations that I've found, and it's also particularly inert. It doesn't affect the water chemistry. It's not a calcium base, so you can keep it in these blackwater tanks with low pH, and it won't raise the pH because it doesn't have calcium buffers in it, which is really cool. It won't affect the hardness either. So SuperZoo this year is actually in Tampa, Florida, or I'm sorry, not in Tampa, Florida, is in Las Vegas, Nevada, but a lot of the import facilities are in Tampa, and they have similar water chemistry in those 2 places, which is unfortunately quite different from the Rio Negro. So one of the things that Project Piaba is working on is helping to acclimate the fish better to the water chemistry that's found where the fish are imported to, so it makes it a gentler ride for them through the importation process. There's a cardinal tetra hiding in the back. Unfortunately, we didn't get very many cardinal tetras, but they're absolutely the best, most stunning crown jewels of a tank like this with their bright holographic coloration, bright blue, bright red. This one, we actually just snapped the lights on, so he's not fully colored up yet, but they're gorgeous when they are. So you'll notice that there are plants in this tank, so that's not a particularly accurate representation of a Rio Negro biotope. There are not many aquatic plants, but these were donated to us by Florida Aquatic Nurseries to show you that you don't particularly have to have a, what would you call it, a biotope representation. You can put these fish in a nice fish tank and enjoy them just as beautiful fish. You don't have to, research the plants very carefully and stuff like that, because unfortunately there aren't very many plants to be found in the Rio Negro. The water is so dark that you don't really get photosynthesis happening. But there's a lot of terrestrial plants that fall in, and we'll show you that next. Oh, Hemigramma stictus. Look at that, Fernando. Very cool. You can almost see the red on the tail, but again, we just snapped the lights on, so unfortunately the fish aren't fully colored up, and we wanted to do this early in the morning before it's loud. Triportheus. So here's, this is kind of like a hatchet fish. Same idea here. The Triportheus. They're kind of a big fish. You need a larger tank. This one is about 100 gallons of water. And they do happen to be jumpers, so you'll want to keep a lot of freeboard in your tank. They're hard to film because they're fast. You want to keep a lot of freeboard in your tank if you're going to keep a species like this, because they do happen to be jumpers. So either the rim of the aquarium needs to be very high, or it does need to have a good lid on it. But the other thing that helps is having kind of an overhang of plants or branches or things like that, because that actually makes them feel a little bit more comfortable, like there's not something coming from above to eat them. So the fish will be less likely to jump with stuff like that, but again, they could always jump. So the plants were donated, the aquatic plants by Florida Aquatic Nurseries, the terrestrial plants by Custom Aquariums, who built the paludarium, and this driftwood, I'd like to point out, is really nice, was also donated to us by PetWorld in Lawrence, Kansas. So we certainly appreciate that. It's beautiful driftwood, and it really, I think, ties the tank together. So that is this tank. Fernando, would you like to show off the blackwater biotope?
Sure.
So we're going to take a short walk over to our booth, our Project Piaba booth. Ignore our bags and stuff, we're still setting up for the morning. But here is our Rio Negro biotope aquarium. And you'll see again, similar fish species. These are the bleeding heart tetras, Hemigrammus erythrostigma. There's also some weirdos in here that came in as contaminants. So there's that one. Do you remember what he was, Fernando? Yeah. Hemigrammus?
Poker. That's the one with the black on the base of the tail. And this is a perfect example of what Jackie was telling before, because this fish is from Peru, is not from Rio Negro, so it must have gotten mixed up at the export or at the import facilities, right? Mm-hmm. Because they wouldn't have been available in Manaus. Mm-hmm. But we're happy to have another type of fish here to show. It's an Amazonian fish, but from another part of the forest.
And I'd like to also mention that the fish were donated by Segrest Inc. And we're very happy to have them donated. They're beautiful fish. And also the leaf litter and the botanicals in the aquarium, what gives this aquarium its dark blackwater tint, was also donated by Segrest Inc. That's a new brand that they're working on called Hydro Oasis. I do happen to have the package here. I actually really like the way that these things are packaged, because the leaves in particular pack flat without getting all torn up and shredded and stuff. Some of the bigger ones I shredded when I put in there to get them to like fill in a little bit, but for the most part the leaves come in one piece and they look really nice. And it's important to have that kind of stuff in a biotope aquarium. The fish really interact with it very naturally. They really like having leaves that they can pick the biofilms, the aufwachs, off of. And so you can see we've got some nice films growing on this stuff. So don't panic if you put botanicals in your aquarium and you get some fuzzy stuff. That's all tasty to the fish, as long as it's not totally out of control. They will eat that and interact with it naturally. They go in and out of the leaves. It's like structure to them. It's interesting and gives them a good place to... Oh, here's another weird fish. Some sort of Hemigrammus. I'm not entirely sure what species that is. Do you remember what we thought it was, Fernando?
Yeah, it's probably a species from the São Francisco basin in northeast Brazil. Very pretty. In Brazil we call them Tetra Nordeste. Nordeste is northeast. So it certainly has gotten mixed up at the import facility because it looks very similar to the bleeding heart tetras and other tetras similar to it. Really pretty fish.
Very pretty.
We have at least a pair of them here.
Can you show the one with the shiny head? So this is actually a parasite that comes in sometimes with wild fish. It's a trematode. It does not hurt the fish, but it makes their scales extra shiny. So there's a species of fish that's particularly susceptible to this parasite called brass tetras without the parasite. So if you breed the fish in a clean environment and you end up with Fish that have never been exposed to the parasite, they're really quite drab. But if you get them wild caught, again, they're particularly susceptible to that trematode, and it makes them like very, very shiny, which I think is beautiful. But it is in fact caused by a parasite, and it doesn't really hurt the fish very much, but it makes them bright and shiny, which maybe that makes them more susceptible to predators. But in blackwater, it's hard for things like birds to see them from above. So it doesn't really affect them that much. And again, all of this driftwood was donated by PetWorld Kansas. We had some lights that were donated by Kessil. And this tank setup that we're looking at right now was donated by Fluvial. And this is their Sienna tank. I was really happy to set this up. I think it looks beautiful. And all of our booth and everything was donated by the World Pet Association and SuperZoo. And so things like this really help us spread the word about how these fish drive conservation in the Rio Negro, because without the fishery to support the people financially, there's not a lot of other options that aren't environmentally damaging. So the other thing I'll point out is that we have a partnership with Sarah that's helping a lot with donating food to some of the export facilities, etc., improve the nutrition of the fish throughout the supply chain. So I'm just going to feed a little bit of this stuff to them. I don't know, Fernando, do you think they like it?
Yes, I always hear that wild-caught fish don't like industrialized food, but I never see that in practice. At least not with the small tetras who like to eat everything that falls in the water.
Yeah.
They will at least take a nab at it, and usually they will like it, and so they will continue feeding and getting stronger and colorful, as you can see in these beautiful bleeding heart tetras here.
Before we go, do you want to feed the other fish?
Let's go there, because there you will see some action going on.
Yeah, it's like a feeding frenzy. Are you guys hungry? I think they like it. And before we go, let's just really quickly again thank our sponsors, because they make this whole thing possible and they help us spread the word about how this fishery drives so much conservation, which is really important to the people of the Rio Negro and to the economy of that region. So, because that's what really protects the environment. So we'll just focus real quick on our display sponsored by signs, because again, we really appreciate all of our donors and sponsors, and so that's really, thank you so much, everyone.
Jackie, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
If people want to go to the 2025 Project Piaba 2-week expedition through the Rio Negro, is it possible still?
Well, we are actually sold out on our 2025 expedition, but if you are interested in doing something like this, please do get in touch with me, because we are working on a wait list situation now. So get in there, and if something happens and somebody drops out, you may be able to get in. But until then, 2026 is the new plan. So we go the same kind of part of the year every year. It's the beginning of, or the end of January, beginning of February, because it's organized around the Aquarium Fish Festival and being able to see that.
Okay, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, everybody.
Now I just need to understand how to stop that. I really don't know. Yeah, it did.
People were commenting, I saw,
yes,
right?
I saw, but how do I stop this? Wait, I haven't stopped it yet.